According to reporting by Chris Rufo and Hannah Grossman at City Journal, employees of the National Security Agency and other intelligence agencies have been gathering on a work-related chat room to discuss their transgender surgeries and kinky sex preferences. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking, wow, that's a relief. Here I was worried about the growing threat from China, an imperialist, genocidal slave state that's not only outstripping our military in preparation to destroy us at war, but has already infiltrated our society through Congress, universities, corporations, Hollywood, and the news media in order to influence our politics, steal our technology, and silence critics of their evil regime. But why worry? The brave men and women of our intelligence community have been on the job, along with the brave men in our intelligence community who think they're brave women, and the brave women who identify as brave men, and the brave non-binaries who identify as brave lesbians so they can have sex with other brave lesbians because essentially they're really just brave men who happen to want to wear glittery mascara for some reason. But anyway, the point is, all these brave mentally ill perverts of the intelligence community are hard at work responding to the insidious Chinese penetration of our society by going on a chat site to discuss how to turn their penises into fake vaginas so they can enjoy some insidious penetration as well. So sure, it is true that the Chinese Navy is growing by leaps and bounds while our Navy dwindles to nothing, and that one Chinese shipyard can produce more vessels than all American shipyards combined. But at least we can feel confident that somewhere an NSA employee is online chatting about how cool Xi Jinping is because he is called Xi, and so is he called Xi, if you see what I mean. And okay, American news outlets like CBS, NBC, ABC, and CNN are likely suppressing critical information about China because they're all owned by entertainment conglomerates that have already proven themselves willing to crawl through the dirt like spineless centipedes to protect their profits by censoring content at the behest of Chinese tyrants. But at least our American intelligence agents are sharing critical information like how to create an SM dungeon in your own basement so Chinese political dissidents won't be the only ones to enjoy getting tortured. And yes, Xi Jinping has declared that his international enemies will, quote, have their heads bashed bloody against a great wall of steel forged by over 1.4 billion Chinese people, unquote. But those who guard our nation secretly have answered that declaration by themselves declaring that if you take enough estrogen to grow breasts, you can stay home and fondle yourself and cut out the middleman or woman. Don't get me wrong. The intelligence community has been shown to spy on Americans' private phone and email communications. So I wouldn't want to insult any of them by calling them a bunch of delusion-riddled deviants who would be more usefully employed shuffling up and down the hall of a secure psych ward with their bleached asses hanging out the back of their half-open hospital gowns than being tasked with anything as urgent as foiling the Chinese in their long-term plan to exterminate American freedoms as they've exterminated Uyghurs, Tibetans, Christians, and the Falun Gong. And given the power of Chinese influencers to destroy my career, my reputation, and my life by mobilizing the American politicians and corporations that have sold their souls to this hostile foreign power for a few pockets full of gold, I would never, ever want to suggest that the bizarre proliferation of delusion-riddled deviants in our intelligence community is in any way connected to Chinese operations like TikTok, where millions of American young people are unwittingly guided to videos encouraging them to become delusion-riddled deviants like the useless clowns at the NSA. So, if I've offended the intelligence community or the transgender community or our dear friends, the Chinese, I just want to say I'm so sorry, because it's so important that all of us can be free to be ourselves until none of us is free at all. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. All right, we are back laughing our way through the fall of the deep state because it's hilarious. That's why. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. But first, let me urge you to go out and pre-order my new book, The Kingdom of Cain. It doesn't come out till May, but you could pre-order it now. It's very helpful for sales of books if you pre-order them. It's called The Kingdom of Cain, Finding God in the Literature of Darkness. It's about 3 murders and how they repeatedly turn up in books and movies and philosophy that reveals the kind of evil philosophies that have infiltrated our society. but it kind of exposes them to the light through the arts. And if you like this show, you will love this book. It is this show writ large and writ very carefully, and I think you'll really like it. Also, so that's The Kingdom of Cain, Finding God in the Literature of Darkness. Please pre-order it. Also, if you want to leave a comment wherever you're listening to the show, if you're just outside with your ear pressed to the door, you can kind of just write it on the wall. If you're listening on DailyWire Plus, you can put it there. YouTube, you can put it there. And I will read it online if it fits our criteria of being absolutely morally disgusting. Today, Tyler FB1 says, I've noticed that every time someone mentions how they wish the Trump happiness montage would go away, somehow it defies all odds and rises from the dead to be played on the show. So here I am doing my part. Let that montage rest on the trash heap of history. And actually, this is the day. We're finally stopping. We're not playing it anymore. We've run the joke into the ground, and enough is enough. You know, I think we've paid tribute to Trump's winning enough. And so we'll just get right to today's episode. What would MAGA do? So unbelievable stuff. As I was walking in here, an unbelievable row broke out in the Oval Office between Donald Trump, Vice President Vance, and President Zelensky from Ukraine. Just terrific. We'll play some of it for you. But before we get to that, let me say, in the run-up to the show, I was a little embarrassed by this emotional breakdown that was going on online with a certain breed of conservatives over the Jeffrey Epstein story. You probably know this, Pam Bondi, our new AG. She demanded the Epstein files from the Southern District of New York, the FBI office there, and she promised Jesse Waters on Fox that she was going to release them the next day, and they didn't come out. And then they handed out these. They brought in some influencers and the press, and they handed out these kind of booklets of, called the Zelensky Files, a very big show of it. And it turned out to be stuff that's all been in the Wall Street Journal, a couple of names that we already know associated with Epstein. But that doesn't really mean anything. But they handed them out and they didn't get anything. And then Pam Bondi kind of hit the roof and wrote to Kash Patel, the new head of the FBI, and said, hey, I got stiffed here. There are thousands of papers they didn't send me. I want them by this morning. They haven't shown, namely this morning, Friday morning, they haven't shown up. It's an important story, but just equally as important, maybe even more important, is the fact that 29 defendants from Mexico who are facing charges in this country because they're cartel members have been shipped over to the United States because of the negotiating power of Donald Trump and Pam Bondi backing him up. And so these are monsters from the cartels that we've been trying to get for decades. We've been trying to get them for decades. That was a big win for her. And as for the Epstein files, I agree. This is an important story. We want to know, if we can, who was on Epstein's island. But what did you expect? What did you expect? We know that the FBI has been taken over by sinister corruptos and politicized by Merrick Garland and Joe Biden. We know that already. We know that the head of the Southern District, New York FBI office said we're going to have to batten down the hatches to deal with Trump, to fight Trump. So, I think we have to all get a little bit with the maestro, the Zen master Taylor Swift, and try to calm down. But it brings up an issue that I want to talk about as I talk about this Ukraine argument. Until Trump's election, we, the new media, were the resistance. It's just like the left was always accusing us of the things they were doing, of racism, of fascism, of censoring people, trying to put our opponents in jail. All the things the left was doing, they accused us of doing. But they also then took our bravery, our courageous actions, namely being the resistance, and they called themselves the resistance, even though they owned academia, Hollywood, the news media, the bureaucracy, the deep state. It was all them. So what were they resisting against? They were resisting against us, the people. They were resisting the voters, and they still are. Well, guess what? We're not really the resistance anymore either. Now we are the establishment. Now we have Congress, we have, the House, we have the Senate, we have the Oval Office, and Trump is on a roll. We have a cabinet of people who are not fighting Trump. So my question is, how are we going to react to this administration? Are we going to go along with everything they do and just go Trump, 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 whatever Trump says, that's the new Constitution, we're rewriting the Constitution? Are we going to get hysterical over every error that they make or misstep that they make? And more, even if they're moral errors, are we going to just tear them to pieces? Somewhere between that, we have to learn how to behave like what we are, which is the boss. We're the sovereign people. We're supposed to lead our leaders on how we want them to lead us, which means criticizing, even though we love Trump, even though I personally am giddy about what he's doing. I still want to be able to criticize him when he's wrong without everybody saying, oh, you're a rhino, you're a traitor, all that nonsense that the left did and how the left boxed themselves out of being able to save themselves. I want to be able to keep myself honest and yourself. I want you to be able to keep yourself honest so we can get through this victory victorious. Let's talk about it. As you know, I never sleep, but when I do sleep, I love to take Beam's Dream Powder. I love to drink it. First of all, it tastes great, but it's also a science-backed, healthy hot cocoa for sleep. It really does transform the way you approach your nighttime routine. Here's what makes it special. Other sleep aids, which I would never take because they cause next-day grogginess. But Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. Now, even when I fall asleep using Dream, I don't sleep for long, but Dream Powder is tested for high-quality efficacy and formulated to ease your body into rest, supporting all 4 stages of the sleep cycle to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. And the best part, it's delicious. It really is good. I'm talking about sea salt caramel. You got your brownie batter. You got some vanilla chai and their original cinnamon cocoa. Each serving is only 15 calories with 0 sugar. Just mix it with hot water or milk, and you've got yourself the most delicious bedtime drink that actually helps you sleep better. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Klavan and use code Klavan at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Klavan and use code Klavan for up to 40% off. And I know what you're thinking, Beam. You told me how to spell Beam. I can spell Beam. How? Oh, how? Please tell me how. Do you spell Klavan? It's Klavan.
Klavan, there are no E's in Klavan.
Chapter 1, Klavan's Theory of MAGAism. So I'm really glad this eruption took place in the Oval Office. It really is. I was having my makeup put on. I know you're thinking I thought you just looked naturally beautiful, but no, they put some makeup on me. And while I was having this fight broke out, this brawl broke out in the Oval Office between Trump, Vance, and Zelensky. And I think that the coverage of this experience as Trump tries to end the war in Ukraine has been typical of the way Trump is covered by the left, but also presents dangers for the right, because we want to make sure that Trump does not get so full. Look, everybody can be corrupted by power, except George Washington. Everybody but George Washington can be corrupted by power, and we want to make sure that he sticks to his path and doesn't sell us out by losing his way personally, right? And we know that, he's a tempestuous guy, and so I want to look at him and think, do I understand this guy? Because everybody thinks they've really got Trump down. Everybody knows exactly what they're, except for me. I'm always watching him. I'm always watching, trying to figure him out, because I think he does something that I'm very familiar with. That is, he's a Gestalt thinker. He's a guy who doesn't think like intellectuals think. He thinks more like an artist thinks, by taking in the entire atmosphere of a situation and then kind of intuitively knowing what he's going to do. That's why they say he's a gut politician. But that's one of the reasons he drives commentators, even on the right, insane, because he does things that they would not do because they don't think like he does and they think he's stupid. And then a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times he turns out to be smarter than they are. And that has driven a lot of people on the right, the never Trumpers specifically, it's driven them nuts. They're just nuts. And you can be nuts for Trump, where you just think everything he does is golden. You can be nuts against Trump, where everything he does is bad. But there's a special kind of thing that you get from these intellectual right-wingers who think, why I'm so smart and he's so dumb, how come he keeps outsmarting me? So I want to think about what it is he's doing. He's not a brilliant constitutionalist. I don't even know if he's ever read the Constitution, but he's negotiating with Putin, and he's kind of pressed Zelensky to the side, and he said some dopey stuff. He said Zelensky's a dictator and he started the war, which is total crap. That's absolutely crap, because Zelensky isn't playing along with the idea that he should negotiate a peace with Putin in which Ukraine loses some stuff, which is going to happen no matter who is president. That's the big secret there, all right? So he says some stuff, and there was this one moment when he called Zelensky a dictator, and before this brawl started in the Oval Office, a reporter held him to account and asked him about that. And as a reporter should ask him about this. And where was this? This was cut 14. Go ahead and play cut 14.
Mr. President, do you still think that Mr. Zelensky is a dictator?
Did I say that? I can't believe I said that. Next question.
So, look, we want reporters to challenge Trump. He's the president of the United States. He has all the power. We've got to have people who challenge him. But what he was saying there when he says, I can't believe I said that next question, he knows he said it. What he's saying is this is a negotiation. I'm a tempestuous guy. I use my tempestuous nature in these negotiations. I'm going to say stuff. You don't have to take it seriously. Let's find out where it ends. And so we know how the left covers it. Oh, he's in love with Putin. He's going to betray the brave, wonderful people of the Ukraine. So Zelensky comes in, and Zelensky has been, kind of running the show in America. He's been coming in, and he's very brave, and his people, certainly the soldiers in Ukraine, are incredibly brave. They're up against a massive power, and he keeps asking for money and more money, and now Trump is saying, hey, we don't want to keep pouring money into this. Let's bring this to a close. And Zelensky comes in, and in front of the cameras, they're having one of those photo ops in front of the cameras. Zelensky starts complaining about how evil Putin is. Now, we already know that Trump has not let the United States sign on to a UN resolution that says Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia is to blame. Now, why won't he do that? We all know that's the truth. It's ridiculous to say Ukraine. You can say that, when George Bush tried to push Ukraine into NATO, that was provocative, but still, it is wrong to invade another country, and Putin is a bad guy. And this is the thing that drives me crazy on the right. He's not so bad. Somebody sent me an article they found on the internet saying, how can he be a dictator? He was elected. He was elected by a vote of 88%, and his main rival died in prison. Okay, so mysteriously died in prison. That's not a real election. That is a Potemkin election. He is a bad guy. He is a KGB interrogator and a really, really bad, he's a murderer. But Trump doesn't want to say that while he's negotiating with him. You can understand that. You don't go in to negotiate with a guy and say, listen, you suck. Now let's make a deal here. No, he understands that Putin, like all dictators, lives in his reputation. The people have to believe he's powerful, and he's making them powerful in order to stay in power. So Trump is going to help him do that to see if he can get out of this. And I'm going to say more about this in a minute, why he would be nice to Putin and why he would, try to become friendly with Putin. I'll say more about this. But Zelensky comes in and hits Putin and starts saying what a terrible guy Putin is. And Vance says, so what kind of diplomacy can you do with a guy like this? And Vance, our terrific vice president, says this.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
It's great stuff. He's saying, we're paying for this war. What the hell are you doing telling us we can't negotiate an end to this war? And he gets into it with Trump. Bad idea. Everybody keeps saying this. Everybody keeps saying, don't attack Trump in the media. If you have something to say it to Trump. But he's doing it right in front of everybody, and Trump hits the roof.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
All right. So now, listen, as far as I'm concerned, this is media gold for Trump. They're going to attack him. They're going to say, how dare he talk to the brave Zelensky like this? They're going to say he's, kissing up to Putin. But Trump knows what he's got here. And this is what he finally says at the end of this huge argument. It went on for over 10 minutes.
He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, You'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think? Huh? This is going to be great television, I will say that.
So he's always thinking about that. He is always thinking about this great television, and he knows he is walking on water now. I watch this, and I'm not like an idol worshiper at all. I watched this, and I thought, wow, that is great stuff. And it's great. But what's going on? What is going on? Look, Ukraine has a beef. They got invaded. They have a beef. Nobody wants to see Russia try to win back its empire. Nobody wants to see, except maybe Tucker Carlson, nobody wants to see Putin become a czar again. Let's not get rid of our values and get rid of the truth because we love what Donald Trump is doing. That's ridiculous. However, I would like to put forward Klavan's theory of what is going on here. And because I look at Trump, and a lot of times he does things, and I think, why? Everybody else is like, he does it because he's evil. He does it because he's perfect. And I just think, well, wait, why does he do it? Why is he doing this? Did you know that scammers can steal your home with just a few forged documents? The FBI calls this house stealing. Criminals forge your signature, use a fake notary stamp, and file with your local recorder's office to transfer your home title. Then they can take out loans against your equity or sell your property without you knowing until collection notices arrive. When was the last time you checked your home title? If you're like me, never, which is exactly what scammers are counting on. That's why I trust Home Title Lock. Their $1 million triple lock protection helps keep your home and equity safe. Here's what you get: immediate 24/7 monitoring of your property, urgent alerts if there are any changes, and if fraud should happen, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title at no additional cost. Here's the best part. I've teamed up with Home Title Lock to give you a free title history report so you can find out if you're already a victim and get access to your personal title expert, a $250 value just for signing up. Go to HometitleLock.com and use my promo code Klavan250, or click on the link in the description and make sure to check out the $1 million triple lock protection details when you get there. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code Klavan250 to get the protection and peace of mind you deserve. Here is the one thing. I think the invisible hand in all of this, and almost nobody talks about it. Sometimes Trump does, but he's the first person to talk about it and bring it to the fore, is China. It's like if you take China out of the equation, then you think, like, why is Trump, being nice to Putin at all? Why doesn't he just why doesn't he turn around Biden's policy of not giving Ukraine enough weapons to win and give them enough weapons to really fight back and then battle it out? I think Trump understands this. For all his Make America Great Again, I think he understands this. We are no longer the nation we were in 1945. And this is something I think so many of our commentators on the right don't understand. In 1945, our enemies were in rubble, and our competitor allies were totally out of commission. We bestrode the Western world. We beat the Soviets in the Cold War, and there was nobody but us to turn to. We were the arbiters of everything. Great. But right now, we have wasted a lot of that energy on leftist nonsense, and now we are weak. We are $36 trillion in debt. We've been infiltrated by socialist goombas at every possible level of our culture, at the academy and Hollywood and all these, and the news media, and we're in debt up to our necks. And China is the great threat. Russia is not that great a threat. Russia is it has nukes, so that makes him dangerous. Putin is a bad guy, that makes him dangerous. But he's not the one who's threatening us. China is expanding. Tom Cotton has an excellent book about this. It's not excellent because there's anything new in it. It's excellent because he just puts all the information together. But China's, it's called 7 Things You Can't Say About China. And that's the other interesting thing about it, that he gets attacked for saying these things. China's military is expanding. Their navy, which is the important thing because we're going to have to fight them at sea, is expanding so rapidly. Our navy is falling apart. And you notice that Trump just appointed a new secretary of the Navy and has said we have got to build up our Navy. Trump is thinking about China. China is threatening Taiwan. If they take Taiwan, it will be an economic disaster for us. It will plunge us into incredible weakness. It means all of those precious minerals that we use in everything, in medical supplies and all our internet stuff, is going to disappear. And you notice in order to make this deal, Trump got these deal to do minerals from the Ukraine. They have about 5% of the world's minerals in the Ukraine. I can't remember what Taiwan has, but it's a lot more than that. Okay. So China's infiltrated our country. They have bought off some of our politicians. They've bought off Hollywood. They've bought off the news media. You know, it's really bad. They are moving in on us and they mean to destroy us, right? And they're bad people. The Chinese are bad, right? They kill their dissenters. They commit genocide on the Uyghurs and on Christians and on the people of Tibet, who they've essentially destroyed the people of Tibet, and they're out to get us. So what would I do if I were king? You know, if I were like, as we teased Jeremy, the God King, that I not only had the power to do it as a person, but I could do it magically, what would I do? Okay, here's the first thing. The debt. The debt becomes dangerous, and this is well-established theory anyway. The debt becomes dangerous in history when the debt service, when paying off the debt, the interest and all that stuff, becomes bigger than your military spending. And Neil Ferguson, I'm not sure how he pronounces his first name, he is a very good historian. He wrote about this in the Wall Street Journal this week, and he said the interesting thing about this is we've done that for the first time in nearly a century. The first time in nearly a century, our annual defense spending was less than our annual federal expenditure and interest payments. So we are spending more on the debt than we are on the military. So we're in trouble. That's how empires die, and we are essentially an empire. That's how great powers die. And so Trump is thinking about this all the time. All the Elon Musk stuff, cutting here and cutting there, all of the trying to cut back the government. He's trying to build back a situation where we can build our military to get ready for China. Klavan's theory of MAGAism. He may not be thinking about this at all. This is my theory. I'm putting it forward. So here, Brett Baer, the terrific Brett Baer, had the new Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, on. And Lutnick is a very fine businessman whose business was devastated by 9/11, lost his brother, lost 600 people in that attack. And he comes on, he loves Trump. He's so enthusiastic. And he talks about how he was the one who named Doge for Elon Musk and what they are doing. Here's cut 7.
October 14th, when I recruited Elon and came up with the name Doge, October 14th, we agreed to balance the budget, that he would take $1 trillion of expense out. Remember, we have just under $4 trillion of entitlements, but no one's ever gone through it. No one's ever looked at it. If I told you no one's ever looked at it, you've got to assume 25% is just mistakes, errors, and is wrong. That's $1 trillion a year. We do tariffs. We do the gold card, we drill, baby, drill, and we get rid of these tax scams that are all over the United States of America, and that'll produce $1 trillion in revenue, $1 trillion in cuts, and $1 trillion in revenue always balances this budget, and we're going to do it.
So with China building up its military, building up its navy, infiltrating our society, using TikTok to screw up the minds of our children, obviously messing with our national security, our spies, I would start to draw back on the debt. That would be the first thing. And then I would start to draw back on some of our overseas commitments. I would try and get Europe to start to pay for their own defense. We can't defend them and defend ourselves from China. We are going to need them as allies when the shooting starts. That's a big deal. And we also need to rebuild our military and all this stuff. And Trump has prioritized all that. And I would start talking to Putin. Why? Because I love Putin? No, I know who Putin is. He's a genuinely bad person. I mean, I don't understand anybody on the right who thinks, oh, Putin. You know why I think this is, I'll try and talk about this a little later, but I think we need to feel that the people that we have to deal with are good and the people who oppose us are bad. And that's just not true. What we have to do is we have to be realistic in the world and foreign policy, because the penalty for not being realistic is death. And if you die, if your nation dies, it can't do any of the good things that the nation does. And so why would I talk to Putin? Because Putin and China have made a bond, and we are better friends for Putin than China can ever be. China will eat Russia last. That's all they're doing. All they're doing is stringing Putin along, and Putin is a sinister character. He knows exactly that. And he knows we won't do that. We don't want to take over Russia. The last thing we want to do is take over Russia. We just want him for an ally against the Chinese. We want to break him away from the Chinese. So does that taste of Yalta, which is one of the things that people on the right, it's Yalta, they're dividing up the world again and they're going to give the part of it to Russia. Yeah, it tastes a little bit of Yalta. No, why? Because we needed Yalta to fight we needed the Russians to fight the Nazis, so we gave them Eastern Europe. We need the Russians now to fight with China, because China, the threat from China is real and it's pending and it's coming. And meanwhile, I wouldn't piss off China too much until I was ready to fight back. That's the other thing. I would not, the one thing that really bothers me that Trump did was he put off the destruction of TikTok. I would stamp that thing out like a bug. It is a bad, bad thing. But I think that he's trying to stay out of China's bad graces for a while until he gets the ship right. That's Klavan's theory of MAGAism. And that's the way I think we should judge him. It doesn't mean that everything he does is right, but it means that he does have this kind of gestalt sense of where things are. I'm not sure that he would say, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm not sure he would agree with me that that's what I'm doing, but I think that that's what I would do, and I have a gestalt sense of things as well. Gestalt meaning the atmosphere, just getting the kind of general idea of what's happening. And I think that what Trump is doing is he is preparing to defend us against China, and all the other stuff plays into that. I could be wrong. Trump may be an evildoer whose evil is evil. He may be a saint who can never do anything wrong. But I think that he is a man who sees things whole as opposed to an intellectual who parses them and analyzes them. I think the press covers him in part, but they should try to cover him as if he actually had an idea of what he's doing. And then, I'm happy for the press to criticize him. I'm not happy for them to demonize him. I'm not happy for them to betray him or encourage the deep state to stand against him. But sure, criticize him, hold him to account for what he says, do your press job, but maybe start from the idea that he might have a concept of what he's doing. And listen, at least if I'm wrong, I've thought about it. At least I've looked at Trump and thought, okay, this is a guy who has been right a lot of times. He has beat out everybody who said he couldn't. He has stood up to incredible powers and oppressive powers, and he has beaten them. Maybe he knows what he's doing now. Let's at least wait and give him a chance and find out. If you're like me, you're probably walking around completely in tune with your metabolism. You know exactly what your body is doing at any given moment. That doesn't really happen. The thing you want to do is you want to get a machine called Lumen. This thing helps me understand what's going on with my metabolism so I don't just have to guess. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach that measures your metabolism through your breath. Just a simple breath into the device each morning, and you will know exactly what's happening with your metabolism and whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Plus, you get a companion app, and that provides you with a personalized nutrition plan for the day based on your measurements. Your metabolism is your body's engine powering everything you do. When you optimize your metabolic health, you can experience improved energy levels, better fitness results, and enhanced sleep quality. I have personally found that understanding my metabolism helps me in approaching fitness. It even adapts to your unique needs daily and adjusts recommendations to help maintain your metabolic health, energy, and even manage cravings. Take the next step to improving your health. Go to lumen.me/Klavan to get 20% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/KLAVAN for 20% off your purchase. And thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Chapter 2, Die, News Media, Die. So why is it important that we don't fall into the left's trap of, covering up for Trump when he does wrong, or into the left's trap of, criticizing, like fighting among ourselves and criticizing, being hysterical over every little thing that goes wrong, where anybody steps out of line, we have to demonize him and pick on him. We have to be honest. We have to act like we want the press to act. And the reason is because I told you when Trump won that this kind of blanket of peace fell on me. And the reason was I realized that we, the new media, the DailyWire, the Joe Rogans, the Megyn Kellys, all of the people who had risen up to fight back against this corrupt, evil, wicked media that had just become so bad, such an instrument of the leftist regime, so that we were heading toward Europe, where you were soon going to be able to be arrested for praying silently outside an abortion clinic, and the press would go, "Good thing we stopped that man from praying," because that's very demonizing of people who want to kill their babies and sell their body parts. They're gone. I didn't know how right I was. When I felt that, that was my Gestalt thinking, I thought, oh my gosh, we beat them, we exposed them. We don't have their reporting power yet, but we have the power to expose them, and we have to thank Elon Musk for that in part, his taking over. Remember, he was excoriated when he took over Twitter, when he fired everybody there, when he allowed the right to talk. They attacked him, demonized him then, just like they're attacking and demonizing him now. Now X is one of the best social medias and one of the most interesting social medias if you think and don't just look at pictures. So the old legacy press is finished, but I had no idea. I mean, it's just amazing how they have fallen apart. They're unraveling in front of us. It's wild. Every time I see more of it, I'm going like, wow, is that really happening? I mentioned this last week after J.D. Vance. I'm going to call him VP J.D. from now on. VP J.D., after he made a speech in Munich criticizing Europe's attack on freedom of speech. Margaret Brennan was talking to Secretary of State Marco Rubio and tried to demonize free speech. This is CBS. CBS, the Face of the Nation, is demonizing free speech. I didn't have time to play the clip, but I got to play it. This is cut one.
He was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it.
So complete ignorant BS, right? The Weimar Republic, the German government before Hitler's rise, had plenty of hate speech laws and had hate speech laws protecting Jews. They put Hitler in jail after the push. You know, they did everything they could to stop him, but it only made him more glamorous. That's what happens when you silence people. When you let everybody speak, the truth has a strong chance of winning out over time. But when you demonize people, when you imprison people, when you silence people, their ideas just become more and more powerful. And that's true of good ideas, like let's stop aborting children. That's a good idea that could be glamorized. That's fine with me. But it's also true of bad ideas like let's kill all the Jews. So like this is the thing. Let everybody speak, and we can trust the good to win out. And they don't understand yet that we see them. Margaret Brennan doesn't understand that we see them, that's going to go around the world in a second. She's going to look like an idiot, and people are going to come out and say, oh, that's not true. People like me, new media, are going to come out and say, no, she's just lying. She has or is ignorant. So I just to give you a wonderful example of that this week, Jake Tapper, It's Okay to Let COVID Dominate Your Life, Tapper brings out a book, Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. He plugs it, his cut two.
Alex Thompson of Axios and I have spent the last several months talking to more than 200 insiders and officials and donors and activists, more willing to talk post-election, of course, to explain the last couple of years in politics and how we as a nation got here with never-before-heard stories from behind the scenes. You will not believe what was really going on. You can pre-order the book at originalsinbook.com.
I thought he should have called the book If I Did It. If I did, because nobody silenced people and covered up for Biden like Jake Tapper. I could spend the rest of the show playing clips of this. I found a lot of them, but here was one that was just on X. He was talking to Lara Trump. Listen to this incredible exchange.
I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You are
to watch somebody on stage
That's so amazing. It's so amazing to me
and try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar.
So Jake Tapper then does that. Again, I have not dozens of clips. I have, almost a dozen clips of him doing this. And now he's writing the book, If I Did It. Because he's part of the government. He doesn't know we can see him. They haven't figured it out, and they don't know what to do about it if they have figured it out. It is wonderful. He doesn't know his pants are off, and we're looking at his lying butt. The same with Trump's decision to end the White House Correspondents Association ability to choose who'll be in the White House pool. So now they're adding some people, they're cutting some people out. Why should this White House Correspondents Association have the right to decide who goes in there? Let the president decide who goes in, but he's still letting all the legacy people come in. All the bigs are going to come in, but he's going to get rid of some of them, and he's giving the AP a hard time for being so left. So here's Miss Brian Stelter is upset about this. Here's cut 5. Just so you know, the White House Correspondents Association put out a statement saying this move tears at the independence of a free press of the United States. So here's Brian Stelter, Miss Brian Stelter, reacting to that.
The reality is that the daily grind of covering the White House is expensive and demanding, and it's been done by a handful of big news outlets like the Associated Press for decades and decades. So the White House here is trying to break that and trying to say it decides who can cover the president. It decides who can ask questions of the president. As you mentioned, the White House Correspondents Association response saying this tears at the independence of a free press in the United States. That is true.
It's actually not true, because all they're saying is who can come in and ask questions in the White House and who can go into the private meetings in the Oval Office and all that stuff. They're still allowing plenty of people who hate them in there. And they're also, they're, like I said, they're not censoring anybody, telling people what they can report, which, by the way, we now know from Margaret Brennan, they don't like free speech anyway. So what's the problem? And Dave Rubin is responsible for this. He came up with this. This is a clip of Brian Stelter questioning whether Fox News should be in the White House press corps.
As Fox radicalizes and as it becomes even more and more of a political tool, Zerwick, you wrote a column recently for The Sun about this, saying Fox should be viewed as a political tool. And that raises the question, should it be a part of the White House press pool?
So he wasn't so sensitive about it then. And by the way, just talking about China and Tom Cotton's excellent book about it, I think so, 7 things you can't say about China. We've asked Senator Cotton to come on. We haven't heard back from him, but hopefully he will. But he points out that CNN, like the networks, CNN is owned by Warner Brothers, who have lots of dealings with China, including a Harry Potter theme park in Shanghai. And they've altered films to please Chinese censors because they want that big market. And Fox, who used to deal with China, they stopped. And Fox is much more critical of China because they are not in debt to China. So Brian Stelter, I don't know. Maybe it's just sometimes women don't understand these things. But, I think he's really out over his skis. But he doesn't understand that we see him. He doesn't understand that Dave Rubin is going to go and find that clip and that everybody's going to see it on the internet. So maybe he should have thought back about, well, I said this here, maybe I should, be fair or anything like that. It's not happening. We've exposed them, and the news media favorability rating is now, I think they're favored by 6 drunks and a schizophrenic. I think that's it. They don't even keep percentage numbers anymore. Nora O'Donnell is gone from CBS. Lester Holt is gone from NBC. Joy Reid has been returned to Arkham Asylum from MSNBC. Social media moguls are gathering around Trump. Mark Zuckerberg is remodeling Facebook to look more like X. Jeff Bezos, this is the big one. This is amazing. I saw this. I thought it was a joke. I actually had to turn on Ben's show to make sure it was real because I wouldn't believe it. He runs my personal favorite site, Amazon. The only place I ever spend money. All my money goes directly to my wife, and I don't know where it goes from there. The only time I ever spend money is on Amazon to buy books. And he also owns, of course, the Washington Post. And he put on X, I shared this note with the Washington Post team this morning. I'm writing to let you know about a change coming to our opinion pages. We are going to be writing every day in support and defense of 2 pillars, personal liberties and free markets. We'll cover other topics too, of course, but viewpoints opposing those pillars will be left to be published by others. We are no longer opposing personal liberties or free markets. And he says this, and by the way, he says, we don't have to bring broad-based opinions to everybody because the internet does that job. People are free to express their opinions. We are going to be in support of personal liberties. So he goes to David Shipley, who's the editor of the opinion page, and he says, I greatly admire him. I gave him the opportunity to lead this new chapter. I said if he wasn't going to say hell yes, then he should say no. After careful consideration, David Shipley decided to resign. He stepped away. Now listen, I admire him Shipley for his integrity, but I want to know what he stands for. Not personal liberties, not free trade. What does he stand for? So that's the thing. You heard it here first. I told you the minute Trump was elected that the reason this was so great is it was a glorious, glorious, glorious victory over the worst perpetrators of oppression in the country, which was our press. And I hate to say that because I want a free press. I want all opinions. Somebody once said of scientists, they don't have to not be biased. It just means that it's not important that a scientist is not biased. It's important that all the scientists are biased in different directions. That's what's true about the press. I wrote this in the LA Times. It must be 20 years ago. I wrote an editorial saying you've got to hire conservatives. You may think you can be objective, but if you're surrounded by people who agree with you, you cannot. You cannot do it. It is not human nature. They need to hire more conservatives and divide their staff, their news gathering staff and their editorial staff between conservatives and Democrats and liberals, and then they will get good media. This is an amazing thing. But remember, like every victory in life, it leads to a new battle. And so we've got to keep our heads on a swivel and make sure that we are the people that this country needs. All right, enough about me. Let's talk about something important, securing your family's future. We all have financial goals, whether it's paying off the mortgage, funding our kids' education, or leaving a legacy. But have you thought about what happens to those plans if you're not around? That's where Policygenius comes in. They've made finding and buying life insurance incredibly simple, giving your loved ones a financial safety net they can use for everything from covering debts to routine expenses. I was surprised to learn that 40% of people wish they had gotten life insurance at a younger age. I got it when I was younger because I had a wife and I had kids, and I wanted to make sure they were protected if somebody listened to the things I was saying and came after me and put an end to me. The peace of mind, knowing my family was protected, really changed everything. It was priceless. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. What I love about Policygenius is how they blend technology with real human expertise. You can compare quotes from top insurers side by side without any hidden fees, and their licensed team is there every step of the way, answering questions, handling paperwork, and advocating for you throughout the process. Secure your family's tomorrow so you have peace of mind today. Head to policygenius.com/Klavan or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/Klavan. Remember, you never know when the end will come, so you have to know now how you spell Klavan so you can get this deal that's Klavan. No E's in Klavan. I just make it look this easy.
There are no E's in Klavan.
Chapter 3, Sex, Lies, and Videotape. And I just want to, before I say this, I got to say this quick. I'm running out of time. But just remember that when J.D. Vance stood up in Munich and talked about censoring speech, it was mostly speech about abortion and anti-feminist speech, anti-migrants as well. But they arrest people for anti-feminist remarks, and they arrest people for anti-abortion remarks. And the one kind of freedom that they support is the freedom of sexuality, the freedom of self-abuse through fulfilling your desires. And what we are talking about is two different versions of what freedom means. They think it means that you can fulfill all your physical desires. We think it means that you can express your spiritual self. They think it means that you can cut your penis off, or cut your child's penis off, or sleep with anybody you want, or sleep with as many people as you want, because they want to destroy marriage, because that makes you a slave. When you follow all your desires, you become a slave. We have the Christian point of view is, if your eye offends you, cut it out. But, enjoy the good things in life, but control yourself. And then you will be free to express the spiritual side, your freedom of worship, your freedom of thought, your freedom of speech, and your freedom of trade, which is really freedom of how you spend your life, what you spend your life building, whether it's a family, whether it's a home, whether it's a business, whether it's just a life. Whatever it is you build with this time that you've been given, you should be able to do that instead of satisfying the desires that will simply enslave you. So this is why the Epstein story is important. We want to know who was in this. Now, I don't know whether the FBI, the corruptos at the FBI and the Southern District of New York have destroyed the Epstein files. I hope Pam Bondi and Kash Patel find out. But I also want to mention this. Andrew Tate and his brother have left Romania and have come back to the United States. And the story is, I don't know fully how this worked, was that Richard Grenell, who was, Trump's special envoy, went to the Romanians and talked about it. Grenell has said he supports the Tates, and that the Romanians said we weren't pressured to do it, but he did talk to us about it, and they let them out. Now, a lot of people on the right want to support the Tates, and this is like Putin. I've told you, these are bad guys. They're the bad guys. They're not the good guys. And what I hear from people saying, well, they weren't convicted of anything. No, they were not. They bragged about it. They said they were pimps. They said they beat women. We have videos of Andrew Tate beating a woman with a belt. We have videos of him saying, oh yeah, women love this when you beat the crap out of them. Then you got to strangle them too, because that really works good. And then you got to, we've got them saying, we're deporting these people. We're deporting sex offenders. We should not be importing them. And when here's what Trump said. He was with the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and this is what he said when he was asked about this, cut 13.
Andrew and Tristan Tate landed in Florida today on a private jet after being released from custody in Romania. They are accused of human traffickers, not thought of as good people in many circles. Did your administration pressure the Romanian government to release them, and if so, why?
I know nothing about that. I don't know. You're saying he's on a plane right now?
He's back. They already did.
Yeah, I just know nothing about it. We'll check it out. We'll let you know.
I do. Look, obviously this involves, there's an English element here, so obviously it's important that justice is done, and human trafficking is obviously, to my mind, a security risk, and so we'll catch up with the story in due course.
You're aware? Are you aware? I didn't know anything about it. Yeah.
All right, so I'm willing to half believe that. Trump seems to have a good scope of information. He did have that thing where he sat down with Nick Fuentes and Kanye West, and I believed that he had no idea who Nick Fuentes was. But I really do think that if there is an element inside our government that thinks these people are good people, that thinks these people, you can get technical, you can get legalistic about it and say, oh, he's an American citizen, we want to bring him home. You can do all the legalistic stuff. You can't get around the moral stuff. You cannot get around the moral stuff, and you should not get around the moral stuff. If he finds out, Tucker Carlson did a softball interview with Andrew Tate that was just absolutely disturbing as far as I'm concerned. I don't know why Tucker Carlson is as deeply embedded in this administration as he seems to be, but if he had something to do with this, if Grenell had something to do with this, I think Trump should kick some ass in his own administration, and I think we should keep on him about things like this, we want him, he's our guy. He's doing a great job. Like I said, I'm giddy at his success. I'm giddy at how much we're winning. I'm not trying to be super critical, but I am trying to retain my critical sense in the midst of my happiness. I think it's important. It's important who we are, because we are the people. We run this joint, right? We're the sovereigns of this place, not Trump, not anybody else. We are the sovereigns of America, and we have to make sure that we remain the kind of people that will make America great again. In today's fast-moving world, there's an urgent matter that often gets overlooked: mothers and their unborn babies who need our support right now. Across the country, PreBorn's network of clinics stands ready to help women facing difficult decisions about their pregnancies. When these women see their baby's heartbeat on an ultrasound screen, they are twice as likely to choose life. That heartbeat represents something powerful, a new life with endless potential. PreBorn connects with women in these crucial moments, offering them hope, support, and a chance to see the precious life growing inside them. Your monthly support of just $28 could help save lives and change futures. Think about this. That's less than $1 a day to help mothers and their babies get the care and support they need. One heartbeat today could touch countless lives tomorrow. If you're ready to make a difference, it's easy to help. Just dial pound 250 and say baby. That's pound 250 and say baby, or visit preborn.com/Klavan. Every donation goes directly to helping mothers choose life for their babies and themselves. Again, that's preborn.com/KLAVAN. Join us in supporting these families, because every heartbeat matters and every life has a purpose. Final chapter: what greatness looks like. One of the things I've always just really liked about Trump is the fact that he viscerally loves this country. You can tell he does. I don't think that's fake. I don't think it's even political. I think, I'm sure he uses it for politics, like every politician uses everything for politics, but he loves this country. And one of the most shocking things about the first administration. It is natural in politics that when your opponent says something, you automatically start to believe the opposite. That's something we all have to watch out for because it actually makes us reactionary instead of thoughtful, interesting, intelligent, creative people. I was shocked during the first administration when Trump said, "Make America great again," how many people said, America was never great. I just want you to listen to this clip from Andrew Cuomo. This was the former governor of New York, was tossed out. He's talking to the New York Organization for Women and Girls, which is funny. We know why he was hanging out around there. He was tossed out for, pinching butts in his office, and now he wants to be mayor of New York. But I want everybody to remember this. This is a guy who wants to be a governor over American people. This was his reaction to MAGA in the first term, cut 9.
He has it on his hat. Make America great again. What does that mean? We're going to go back to a time when America was great. Right? Great again. The whole concept is it's retrospective. When do you want to go back to, Mr. President? What was the great time that you want to take us back to when America was great? Before the environmental protection movement? Before marriage equality, when it was just a man and a woman? Before these new immigrants started to come across the border? And before the women's equality movement? That's when America was great in his head. We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great.
That's an amazing, amazing statement. We got it from the New York Times, from Nicole Hannah-Jones, who put out The Lies of the 16, won a Pulitzer for writing The Lies of the 1619 Project, saying that, and pumping that garbage into our schools, where it still is, saying that the American Revolution was there started to protect the institution of slavery, that the true founding was 1619 when the first slaves came over, defining us by our sins instead of by our greatness. And if you feel that way, you should not be governing this country. And I don't even think you should be covering it, although I don't think you can outlaw it. But you surely shouldn't be teaching Americans' children. It is an adolescent view. Every adolescent one day finds out that daddy isn't perfect, and then they decide he must be a terrible, terrible person if he's not perfect. And they have to get to about 40 years old before they realize, oh, nobody's perfect, and my dad did a great job being who he was. That's the trajectory. These guys have never gotten past adolescent. They found out that America was not perfect. It's not perfect because it's full of people. It's full of people, so it's full of sin. Only countries that have no people in it are perfect or sinless. We've got to purge these adolescent minds from positions of informational power. I was talking to my friend John Fonte from the Hudson Institute. This guy is probably the best historian of ideas. Any idea you bring him in American politics, he can tell you where it came from, going back to like Adam and Eve. It's an amazing, capacious mind, a really brilliant guy. And he was telling me that this stuff has so infiltrated our cultural monuments, our cultural strongholds. So, for instance, there's an organization of American historians, which was that's historians not who are American, but who cover America. And they have put out a statement: we have to acknowledge and interrogate systems of oppression and address the myriad injustices that these systems have perpetuated throughout the past and into the present, because America is a nation built on slavery, exploitation and exclusion. Daddy is not perfect. That's what our historians are saying. That's what they want to teach our children, that we are built on slavery, exploitation, and exclusion. Well, no, you should not be allowed to teach. Lonnie Bunch III heads the Smithsonian Institution. All the museums in Washington, or most of them, are Smithsonian institution places. And Lonnie Bunch III has a very smooth line in just telling both sides of the story. He says what the country needs are places that are nonpartisan and safe, where people can grapple with what's going on around them, right? But really, he is a staunch supporter of the 1619 Project. He says, I'm an historian. I think that anytime you can illuminate a dark corner like 1619, that's part of the job of museums. I was very pleased with it because in some ways, Americans will never get beyond some of the issues that divide us over race until we understand that history and grapple with questions. Like we've never dealt with slavery. We've been dealing with it since 1865. It's taught in class. It was taught in classes when I was a boy, which was 1866, I think. We've been talking about this all the time, that this was a bad period and a bad thing that happened. If you never get beyond the bad things you do, then you never get to the great things you've done. You know, you go to Monticello now, where Jefferson lived. You go to even Mount Vernon, a little bit not as bad. There's more in the library, in the bookstore at Monticello about slavery than about Jefferson. And you know what? I'm interested in the lives of the slaves on these big houses. I really am. I'm interested in the lives of the slaves of Mount Vernon, but I don't go there for that. I go there because Jefferson lived there, because George Washington lived there. That's what I want to know. You know, and I think these people, we need to purge our institutions of these people. We need to get them out of Mount Vernon. We need to get them out of Monticello and make sure they're talking about why Jefferson is great. I don't want to silence their opinions. I just don't want them in the Smithsonian. I don't want them running the Smithsonian. I don't want them running our museums. You know, I've talked many times about the George Washington paradox, the fact that he handed his sword to the civilian authorities because he loved freedom so much that he gave up an empire, but he still didn't understand why his slaves tried to escape. He didn't understand it because that atmosphere of the atmospheric idea that slavery was okay surrounded him too, like it does all people, like it surrounds people today about abortion, right? That's why good people sometimes have abortions, because sometimes you just get caught up in that cloud and you cannot see who you are. Everybody does. Everybody does. We live in time. You ever look at yourself in the mirror and think, how can God ever let me into heaven when I've done the things that I've done, or thought the things that I've thought, or said the things that I've said? I do. I certainly have that moment. And the answer is God can forgive you when you can't even forgive yourself, because we live in time, but he lives in eternity. So at the same moment he sees you sin, he sees you redeemed. The same moment he sees you do the terrible thing you did in your stupidity, he sees you get wiser and repent. He sees that at the same time, And that's why he can forgive. And when I look at our country, you have to see it that way. There's no person walking around on this earth, not one single man or woman walking around on this earth who has even this much political freedom, who doesn't owe that freedom to American blood and treasure. Not one person has freedom, political freedom, including the British, including the Europeans, who does not owe that to American blood and treasure. The idea of a republic virtually didn't exist when America was formed. It became so popular, so successful, so beautiful that even the slave states of the Soviet Union called themselves republics. That's what the USSR meant, the United Soviet Socialist Republics. They weren't republics. They had to pretend to be us, so people thought they were good. America is great, not because of the people, but to be great because of the beautiful ideas those people incarnated in the world in the midst of their sinfulness. Freedom, opportunity, the people as sovereigns. What an incredible new idea. That came out of, thousands of years of history before anybody thought of that. It's not diversity. Now, diversity is not a good per se. It's not a good in itself. Diversity is a good side effect of great ideas that everybody can be a part of, right? If a black guy and a white guy both believe in freedom, they stand together to defend freedom. That's a beautiful thing. When we look at America, we should see it whole. See it whole. It is a beautiful place. It is an amazing place. We should be like Walt Whitman. We should, one of our greatest poets, we should celebrate ourselves and sing ourselves, especially as our 250th anniversary comes up, and as we try looking to ourselves, looking to our sins, repenting for our sins, moving forward as we try to make America even greater than it's ever been before. It all goes down Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. President Donald Trump, your favorite, addresses Congress, laying out his America First agenda on immigration, the economy, and national security. And you already know we're going all in. Kick things off with Backstage Live at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, where the entire crew breaks down what's at stake and sets the stage for President Trump's speech. Then we watch the full speech together live on DailyWire Plus. No spin, no nonsense. And when Trump's done, we're just getting started. The gang is back for real. Unfiltered analysis you won't get anywhere else. This is history in the making. Don't sit on the sidelines. Watch it all live Tuesday night on DailyWire Plus. Subscribe now at dailywire.com. Klavan Klapbacks.
But let's be honest about our emotions, talk through it, and recognize it's okay to not be okay.
A man can become a woman, it is true. Klavan Klapbacks at dailywire.com. Klavan is spelled with a K, Klapbacks with a K. Please write in about anything on your mind, your personal life, your politics, your cultural ideas, and we will try and answer them. The First letter is from Daniel. He says, I'm a conservative civil engineer and federal employee. I always knew there was waste, fraud, and abuse and welcomed the changes that the new administration would bring to increase efficiency in the federal government. What I was not prepared for was that the rank and file federal employees would be hated and treated like the enemy. All of my career, I've just tried to serve the people of the United States. And now I know how it feels to have a boss who hates me, and half the people I'm trying to serve hate me as well. Daniel, I completely understand this, and I totally sympathize. There are lots and lots of good civil servants who love this country and who try to serve this country. But the civil service, the bureaucracy, has become a cancer in the American system. We have Congress creating entities that live in the executive branch that the executive can't control. That's bad. That's a violation of the separate powers, and it is a really bad thing. It has been a grief and a terror and a horror for many Americans. And like I said before, people like to believe that the institutions that are doing bad things are filled with bad people, and that's not true. Just like there are many good journalists in this country, but the journalism has become corrupted. There are wonderful, wonderful people working for the country, and I know you were trying to serve the country, and I believe you that you were trying to serve the country and serving the country, and you should not be hated and demonized. And it's a shame. It's something the public does. I'm sorry, it's something the public does. But this thing needs to be destroyed. And it's unfortunate that people. It's like hating the enemy in war almost. You know, you start to say, those dirty so and so's, when really most of the people didn't bring that war on and don't want it to be happening. But it's just a natural thing, and I'm sorry it's happening. It's too bad, but it does have to. This cancer does have to be torn out. The next is from Blaze. He says, Darth Klavan, first, that is my actual title. First, thank you for the wonderful and insightful podcast as one of the highlights of my week and a source of wisdom about our culture that few podcasts come close to matching, and your new novels are a great read and are answering some questions about masculinity and manhood that I've had for some time. In your last episode, you spoke about what Hollywood has pushed on our culture, which has shown us that to be a man, you have to be an outlaw, hence showing the Sopranos and The Shield and Breaking Bad. Yet you've discussed the movie Shane, where Shane, a gunman, is pulled back into his violent past, a metaphor for proper masculinity, to be a responsible provider and family man, but be capable of violence if necessary. He goes on to say, I'm a Marine who deployed 3 times to Afghanistan, but now I'm a family man with deep in my Catholic faith, and I think this is a better story of manhood for our culture. And yes, Blaze, absolutely right, and that was my point, that when the culture goes bad, and especially when men are disrespected as they have been, that the only good men are outlaws. But that doesn't have to be that way. And if you want to see a great movie about that, watch The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance with John Wayne and Jimmy Stewart. But you're absolutely right about this. That is the proper idea of manhood from King Arthur. That's why stories about knights in armor and cowboys, when men can be tough guys but for the good, are so popular. That's why, because they illustrate that point about manhood, that we want to be gentlemen, but there are times when gentlemen have to be hard characters, and we have to be able to bring that hardness to situations at times, like the situation we're in now. All right, we've got one more letter, but become a member today so you don't get plunged into Klavanless darkness when we end the clapbacks. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Klavan at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. And I just want to close with this letter. It's from Donald.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet.
Zippity-dee-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my, what a wonderful day.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. Yay! You'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
All right, come on over to Members Block.